Well, hey everybody, welcome back. I hope that you had a great week. I hope you're looking forward to a great life groups discussion. This is week 6, so there's just a couple more weeks left. I hope you're enjoying it, building some community, having some fun discussion, and I hope that you're starting to see the impact of the discussions in the series is having a positive impact in your life and in your family. Before we jump in, just another quick reminder, you're probably getting sick of hearing this, but just make sure that all of your sharing, when you're sharing, you're just keeping other people's feelings in mind. So let's jump in. So as you know, we are in the series All Day, Every Day, in which Pastor Tom is walking us through the book of James, which was written by the half-brother of Jesus to Jewish believers at the time who were struggling with their day-to-day faith. And so the whole point of All Day, Every Day is for us to develop a faith habit, something that we are doing continuously throughout each day, all day, every day. So this past weekend, Pastor Tom was in the next chapter of James, and he was talking about wisdom. And this one was a really cool sermon. And if you missed it, go ahead, catch up on the podcast or the vodcast at southcoastchristian.com. But Pastor Tom was explaining how from 2 weeks ago, he had talked about taming the tongue and how wisdom was almost the other side to the same coin. It could have been really a small 2-part series on taming the tongue and wisdom and how those two go hand in hand. So Pastor Tom shared that really there's kind of 2 ways to go about wisdom in our lives. There's earthly wisdom and godly wisdom. And if you were with us on Sunday, you probably heard that earthly wisdom tends to have more of a non-God focused kind of centrality to it, where God-focused wisdom, it's in the name, tends to point us in the opposite direction. It's our outward expressions towards others that really are impacting the world around us. So as we move forward, just a quick recap, Pastor Tom talked about 2 distinct characteristics of earthly wisdom, and those tend to be not godly, and they are more jealousy and selfish ambition. So we might see somebody with a promotion or a better job than we have and say, oh, I'm jealous of that. Now my ambition is going to be only towards getting that. And so I am striving and trying to become more successful and more powerful so that I can have what I don't have. So before we jump into the questions, go ahead and take a look at this clip from Pastor Tom over the weekend.
It's a selfishness that is arising in us. Jealousy is the opposite of love. And I believe that the devil uses jealousy to distract us from God's opportunity, God's purposes in our life. Jealousy will blind us to the opportunities that God has already planned for our lives. And I've seen this happen before. It's kind of an amazing scenario where I've been talking to someone and they have this great opportunity that's just sitting right in front of them. But because they are blinded because of jealousy, all they say, they're comparing themselves to someone else. I wish I was that person. I wish I had that person's opportunity. That's all they can see. And they miss out on the opportunity that's sitting right in front of them, because they're looking at someone else. They're comparing themselves to someone else. God says we shouldn't do that. That's not what we're called to do. And this is something that is pretty, think about this thought. Jealousy is really stating that you are not satisfied with what God has already given you.
So what PT is really saying is that basically when we're jealous, it shows that we're not satisfied fully with what God has given us. And so my first question tonight is, and it's okay to be honest here in the discussion times, in your opinion, is it okay to have just a little bit of jealousy in our lives? Can it be healthy? Can it be helpful? Go ahead, pause the video right there. I'll see you in a minute. So I hope that you had some great discussion there. Pretty interesting responses, I'm sure. So let's jump into the second question. What does your level of jealousy say about your thankfulness in what God has given you? What does it say about your personal agenda versus living according to God's plan? And feel free to share a past experience or maybe even a current experience where you might be feeling a little bit of jealousy towards somebody and how that's making you feel now about God's plan for your life and how that affects it. Feel free to pause the video right here. Hope that you have some great discussion, and I'll talk to you in a few minutes. I hope that you had some great discussion. So now we're going to shift gears into godly wisdom. And so Pastor Tom mentioned that godly wisdom tends to have 2 main characteristics, and this is all coming from the book of James. but godly wisdom tends to have peace-loving and gentleness at all times. And I think he even said, you're peaceful and you're gentle all day, every day. So a good metric for us to gauge our own godly wisdom is to see how much on the course of a day that we have love, peace, and gentleness at all times. So Pastor Tom's second point was simply that through godly wisdom, we find instead of having division in our homes, our families, or our workplaces or environments, that we actually have a peace that brings unity. So go ahead and watch this clip from Pastor Tom from the message this weekend, and I'll be right back with you.
There is no need for a cover-up. And I want you to catch this next thought. I call it the great reveal. If you look back at the first part of verse 17 of chapter 3, it states, but the wisdom from above is first of all pure. You see, there's no need to disguise anything in your life if you have pure motives, if you have honest motives, if you live in godly attributes, if you chose to live in a godly wisdom for your life. There's nothing that you need to hide because godly wisdom is going to produce good actions. It's going to produce good deeds in your life. Godly wisdom doesn't show favoritism, but remains sincere, meaning that it's genuine, it's authentic. It's something that you can stand upon. It's honest, it's trustworthy. James writes, those who practice this quality of making peace are planting seeds that will produce a harvest of righteousness.
So let's jump into another discussion question. The question for you is, what does James mean when he says that planting the seeds of peace lead to a harvest of righteousness? So maybe share in real terms or some real examples of where you've seen that, or maybe some areas of hope that you have where you might be seeing that after applying some of this godly wisdom to your life. Go ahead, pause the video right there. I'll see you in a minute. I hope that you had some great discussion. So now we're going to move forward into the last question for today. And this one really is a little bit more intimate, and I'm hoping that maybe you can share more from like your own perspective or from within your own household. But how can we be agents of peace within our own homes? So maybe tie that into how you are going to use your godly wisdom and take this all day, every day series. And how are you going to apply that inside your household? Maybe as a spouse or as a child or as with our children. I'm really curious to know, and I'm sure your group leaders are too, and they can help facilitate a discussion. But go ahead and take a few minutes and just talk about how you can be an agent of peace within your home. Go ahead, pause the video right there. I'll see you in a few minutes. Well, I hope tonight's discussion challenged you a little bit. I hope that everyone is full of hope, that their households and that their workplaces can be filled with peace, no division, and hope. And I hope that through this discussion tonight, we all kind of learned a little bit more about what God really wants for our lives as opposed to what we really want for our lives. And I think Pastor Tom kind of mentioned this weekend that when what we want for our lives matches up with what God wants for our lives, really cool things are going to happen. I hope that you get to see that in your life. I hope you've seen it, and I hope that we all continue to get that as we move forward. So lastly, I'll end with this. Pastor Tom ends in James 1:5, and he says, James says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. So if there's still a little bit of time left in your group and you feel comfortable with it, why don't you just take a few minutes as a group and pray and ask God for wisdom? Sometimes it's that simple. The Bible has a lot of complex, verses and chapters and pages, but really some of the lessons are very simple. Ask and it shall be given to you. And it's especially true when it comes to wisdom. Take a few minutes, pray for wisdom, and if you don't have time to do it within your groups tonight, just try it at home. Pray with your families. Use your own personal prayer time and just simply ask God for wisdom. Ask him for godly wisdom, and we all here at South Coast know that it will be given to you. Be blessed this week from our group leaders and our staff. We love you. We're praying for you. We will see you next week. And don't forget to catch up on the Vodcast or podcast at southcoastchristian.com if you'd like to see this full message, because it was a really good one. Love you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.